If you're in high school or if you're a freshman, sophomore in college and you're thinking about becoming pre-med or you're thinking about going to medical school, this is a very valuable tool because you need to know what's ahead of you. Because if you don't, you're screwed. All right, what's going on, everybody? My name's Jackson McCarthy. I'm a pre-med student athlete. And today I want to talk about the medical timeline of medical students or pre-med students. And so to start, like every video, glory be to God and our Lord Jesus Christ. Before we get into the video, this is my first video, so it's going to be rough, just a heads up. But I'm just going to try to treat you guys like my sister or my family members were going to go through medical school or the pre-med route. This is a typical path for some people, and I'm going to relate it back to me to have you guys know me a little bit. Again, my first video on this channel, so let's just get into it. So phase one, we got high school. Spent a lot of time on the high school piece. Irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. The thing about high school is it's a really formative time when you figure out what you're good at. Some people, like the old adage, like you're either a math or an English person. Me personally, I'm an English person. Math, I can do it. Don't really like it. But high school, the grades that you get doesn't really matter. It helps you get into a pre-med college or helps you get into an undergraduate college. It's where you do a lot of your self-discovery and you figure out what you're good at or what your natural inclinations are. I figured out when I was in high school that I was big into science. I'm a science guy. I couldn't really picture myself doing some different humanitarian type of jobs. I think pre-med and the science aspect was seated in my high school career, especially from wherever you are. If you have a good curriculum for science, humanities, arts, whatever it may be, a lot of that's born in high school, and that's where you're gonna see where your natural inclinations are. Like I said before, that's not super important, but I just wanted to throw that in there. We're gonna go right into phase two, and that will be the undergrad / pre-med. During this phase, you're gonna have to take a slew of classes that will probably not mean too much for your major requirement. A lot of pre-meds are bio, they might be physics. They're gonna be in the STEM areas mostly, but not always. It just makes more sense for overlap purposes. I was a 21-year-old freshman because I'm a hockey player and I did this thing called junior hockey where it takes years between high school and undergrad to play and hopefully get a scholarship. And I can kind of go into my story a little bit differently, but for right now, I just wanted to kind of keep this in like a general traditional path, but somewhat related to me. The undergrad pre-med, you're 18, 19, you're going into college, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. And it's very overwhelming. Being a doctor isn't a light decision. There's a lot of potential debt that goes into it. There's a lot of big decisions, big life decisions that is going to set you up for the rest of your life, but you're only 18 years old, so how are you going to figure that out? That being said, at some point you're going to want to figure that out because you're going to have to take a lot of prerequisite classes that a lot of these schools are going to need. So you're going to take a lot of your general biologies, your general physics, your general chemistries, and then there are certain things that are going to build upon that. So a lot of times they like cellular and molecular, which is biology. Physics, they don't really care. I think that's just more for MCAT prep. You're going to need to know a lot of the basic concepts to do well on that test, and we'll kind of get to that in phases later on. But then you're also going to have your chemistries like organic chemistry. Yeah, sucks. And then you're gonna have like your psychologies, your sociologies. Spoiler alert, a lot of it is for the MCAT. You're going to need a lot of base knowledge to do well on that test, which is the entrance exam for medical school. A lot of phase two, that's what that is. It's prepping you to figure out A, that you do want to go to medical school, and B, getting a lot of your prerequisites done so you can apply and be a competitive applicant. You need to have certain things done and you have to do well. Undergrad and pre-med is very important. Even though it is super early on in the process, it is imperative that you get good grades and do well. You don't need a 4.0 because obviously it's possible to get in without a 4.0, but you can't slack off. You got to be able to do your work. You got to do it well. Phase three is your MCAT and application. And so this is where I am right now. So phase two and phase three can overlap quite a bit. A lot of times you're taking your MCAT while you are in undergrad, which is what I'm doing right now. It's an 8-hour long test, 7.5, however you want to break it up. You're there all day. Let's just put it that way. And all of the courses that you take in phase two are pretty much going to be directly applied to phase three. The thing about the MCAT, it's very stressful. It takes about 3 to 6 months on average to study for, prepare for, and do well. It is out of a score of 527. I think the national average right now is a little bit north of 5'10". I believe that is true as the last time I checked, but each year people are doing better and better, which makes it more and more competitive. So 5'10", I'd say, is a conservative number right now. You're doing a lot of grinding for months, weeks, days, hours on end. And yeah, you don't really much have a life. You're doing this especially during phase 2 and you're doing it during the school year. Good luck. I salute you. I'm not doing that. I'm doing it in the summer because I don't have that bandwidth. I just can't do it. So that's kind of like the first half of phase 3. So like 3.1. 3.2 is the application process. And I'm not looking forward to this at all once I do take my MCAT. The application process is a long and arduous process where you cast the net out and try to market yourself the best you can to medical schools. So you're going to have a primary application where you're going to send your CVs, your letters of recommendation, your MCAT scores, your transcripts, and whatever other documents that they want for you. I think a lot of it is dependent on school because some schools have different prereqs, some schools have different things that they care about, like academics versus clinical work versus volunteer hours. All of it matters, but some weight them differently than others. And so whatever school you are looking into, you're going to have to do more research on that to figure out what you really want, or what they really want rather. The tough part about the applications is it's very expensive. Each application can cost $100, $300. You pass the first round of primary applications, you move on to round number 2, and that's secondary applications. So not only do you have to take more time, you have to take more time and kill it and crush it so they keep you in the pool and you're not basically working yourself out. And then after that, you have the interview process. And so we would sit in a room, hopefully nicer than this if you're a medical school, and they, exactly as it sounds, interviews you. They will go over your application, ask you questions about certain experiences that you've had. Times it's the most meaningful stuff that has come up during your process, especially during phase 2. I don't want to say red flags, but question marks on your CV or transcripts, kind of like, what happened there? I might bring that up. And altogether, it's for them to get a good gauge on who you are. Because to be quite frank, if you don't have interpersonal skills, you're not going to be a good doctor. I mean, you might be a good surgeon because the people are knocked out, but just kidding. It pays dividends to be a people person. And so if you can comfortably speak one-on-one with somebody, be personable, you don't have to be charismatic, you don't have to be the best, most suave person in the room, but if you can hold eye contact, if you can make the other person feel at ease, that will pay dividends down the road when eventually you're working with people and patients. That process is very long, this phase 3, very cumbersome. It's going to take a lot, not only brain power, but money. So good luck. Phase 3B. Now this is optional. If you are a super genius, you're probably not going to use this because you probably won't need it. You're just going to get into your Stanfords, Harvards, wherever top places that you can get into because you're just a rock star. For us mere mortals, we're probably gonna have to take gap years because our resumes might need some shaping up, might need more clinical hours, you might need more volunteer hours, you might have to retake your MCAT because you didn't really do that well on the first one and you feel like you can do better the next time. Again, like I said, optional year, but it's a really good thing to have, especially from somebody who took 3 gap years in between high school and college. That was the time where I actually figured out I wanted to go and be pre-med. I think the gap year is huge because it might be big financially where you might be able to work. Maybe it is a clinical job while you're bolstering your resume and making some money. That might help pay some debt later down the line because medical school is not cheap. And especially if you are not a super genius or have some wonky financial situation, whatever it may be, and you aren't getting financial aid, you might have to take out some crazy student loans and you're gonna have to save some money. And so that phase 3B might be good. So gap year might actually be gap years depending on what happens. And again, this is a traditional medical timeline. Some people have entire careers before they actually become a doctor, which I think is super sweet, kind of crazy because it's a lot and it takes a lot of time. And so I think that's really impressive. You can have an entire career, but this isn't for you guys, as in the ones who already had a career. But that gap year might become gap years. Well, moving on to phase 4, medical school. what I know about medical school has been through research and firsthand experience of people going through medical school. Some people equate it to drinking out of a fire hose. Everything's coming at you. I'm sure this is pretty across the board because it is tough, but in 4 years you pretty much learn how to be a practicing physician with some of the most important tests all throughout there, like step 1, step 2. First 2 years, I believe, are very much classroom work where you're having lecture style. Years 3 and 4 are going to be a lot more of your hands-on. Medical school, it's the game. It's the end game for phase 2, the undergrad pre-meds. Like, this is the next huge milestone that you're pretty much reaching for, is getting into this secondary education or this graduate school. And so getting into medical school is a huge accomplishment. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. When you're a pre-med, you're going to have friends that have gone to this school, that school, and they're going to say whatever about whatever schools. If you get in, it's a great accomplishment. Congratulations. It's amazing. Medical school, it's going to be tough. I already know it's going to be tough. Everyone says it's going to be tough, but they said it's very rewarding at the end when you go through the rest of the phases and kind of get there. It's obviously doable because there are tons of doctors and we could always use more, but that's what it's going to be. You're pretty much becoming the beginning of the person that you want to be, and starting your career path is really where phase 4 comes in and starting. So the cool thing about phase 4 is where you actually figure out what you want to do when you're in medicine. There are many subspecialties within medicine. You're going to have your surgical, you're going to have your medicinal or more practicing-esque type of subspecialties. So like, there is a very big difference between a vascular surgeon and an emergency medicine physician. Emergency medicine physicians are not doing procedures. Vascular surgeons are. So that's going to be one of the big main distinctions that you're going to figure out, I think, and that's going to be more years 2 and 3 in medical school. And those are going to be obviously pretty exciting because you're going to kind of find your niche and kind of find what you're good at or not good at. Figuring out that subspecialty kind of sets you up for the rest of your career, or figuring out what you really want to practice within medicine. Like, it's very easy for someone when they're young to say, oh, I want to be a doctor. And then someone says, well, what type of doctor do you want to be? And they go, I have no idea. Me right now, I know that there's going to be a lot that I'm going to be exposed to if and when, hopefully, I get into medical school. And so I'm kind of just waiting and seeing, but I have been exposed to a lot. Like emergency medicine, I've been exposed to quite a bit. Vascular surgery, I have sat in on many operations and procedures with that. I'm an athlete, so I know orthopedists very well. I know a lot of different subspecialties because I've had medical complications in the past, like neurology, neurosurgery. I haven't had neurosurgery, but I've done my research and we've come very close. A lot of those subspecialties, they're all very unique and they're all very fine-tuned in their own way. And I think medical school is super cool because that's the time where you figure out where you gravitate to. It's kind of like high school where you figure out your natural inclinations and you figure out your predispositions on what you're good at. Medical school, figuring out what subspecialties you gravitate to, is kind of in the same way. It's more of a self-internal discovery, which I think is awesome. That kind of bleeds us into phase 5, residency. The nightmare of the medical journey is what I've been told. You are working absurdly long hours for minimal pay. You're not making a doctor's salary, even though you are a practicing physician technically. You will be working under an attending, so you will have someone supervising you. But residency, in those 1 to 7 years, depending on your specialty, I doubt you're ever going to find one for 1. You're looking at more like 4 to 7. Very tough process. And that's kind of the, you just need to get through it to be successful. You need to get through it to kind of like be good kind of the rest of the way through. Again, it's a lot of self-discovery and it's a grind. You're working 12-hour shifts straight through and you're just going. You are responsible for a full patient workload. You are doing all of the hands-on work. You are learning how to be a full attending doctor. You are the person making the decisions. Obviously, the attending is making the final decision, but you are responsible for patients. You are a doctor now. You have to do a lot of the procedures, whatever it is. It's going to fall under you, and you got to be sharp. You got to know what you're doing. And I think a lot of that is going to be seeing whoever walks in through the door. That's going to be your best trial learning experiences. You know, you have to have an X amount of procedures. The only way to do that and be proficient on it on your own is doing. The best way to learn is to do. By the time you're done, people want to hire you and say, all right, this person's been through residency, they've gotten their hours, they've done the procedures, they know what they're doing. This is a full-fledged doctor now. Let's do it. Let's go. We need you out in the workforce because we need you to call the shots. And there's not going to be someone working over your shoulder all the time. You need to trust your training all throughout medical school, all throughout residency, and you need to be ready. And I think that's where a lot of the pressure of being a doctor comes from. You're making life and death situations. People's lives are in your hands, and you have to be comfortable doing that. Phase 5 is kind of that first glimpse of you are making decisions that are actually impacting somebody. You are going to be somebody, for lack of a better word, important and detrimental in this person's recovery process or their life-saving process. You're the guy or the woman or the girl. You're the person now. And so residency, like I said, is kind of that first part to it. You know, it is a privilege no matter what. You know, obviously it's very easy for me to say because I haven't gone through it, but everybody that I have talked to say being a doctor is a privilege, not a right, or it's not something to be taken advantage of. So even during that grind, you are still impacting people's lives and saving them, doing good. And so even though it is tough and a lot of people dread it, from what I've told, it's still a rewarding experience. So I wouldn't say I'm excited if I can get to that, but just got to do it. So now on to phase 6, fellowship. A lot of times each subspecialty medicine can branch off. It's the niche within the niche. So for example, in emergency medicine, you might have the ultrasound guy. Like, he's the professional, he's the dude best with the ultrasound. That's going to take fellowship. You're going to have to take time to specialize in that. You are a certified doctor, you're practicing, but you are still doing certain things to get your certification. And so there are levels to your training that you're getting. Like, this is a full-blown process that takes years and years and years and years and years because stakes are high, but you can get compensated very well. As people know, doctors get paid very well. Fellowship is where you're finding the niche of your niche. So that's where you become the prominent figure in that field. Like, toxicology is a subspecialty of emergency medicine. And so you're not going to have a ton of toxicologists in one area, obviously depending on population density and blah, 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 blah. Like, every toxicologist is adept at emergency medicine or primary medicine, whatever it may be, but not every emergency medicine, primary medicine is a toxicologist. The more specialized you get in fellowship, quote unquote, the more valuable your skill set is seen to be because you've gone through that extra training. Will you get compensated that way? Who knows? But it's not about the money. It's about doing the job the best that you can and pretty much being an expert in that niche that you are in. That will lead you to phase 7. You are now a full-fledged doctor. You are practicing. You might be starting your own practice. You might be working in a hospital setting. You might be doing who knows what. But that's obviously the end goal of the medical timeline. And the reason I did this is a lot of people don't know why or what it is and kind of how much that really goes into it and how long this journey is. From about phase 4 to phase 7 could be 11 to 12 years depending on what you're looking at. Knowing the timeline and making these decisions is very important because if you don't know what you're getting into, you don't want to sign up and commit because it does cost a lot of money and it's tough to take out a ton of loans to get maybe at the end of phase 4 you get to medical school. Obviously you would know what comes if you're already at phase 4 medical school, but just for argument's sake, if you're at phase 4 medical school at the end and you're like, I got 7 more years of this, dude, like I don't know if I'm into it. Now you're in $200,000 in debt and you just went through all that training for what? You just wasted time. So it's good to know, especially for people that are in phase 1 and phase 2. If you're in high school or if you're a freshman, sophomore in college and you're thinking about becoming pre-med or you're thinking about going to medical school, this is a very valuable tool because you need to know what's ahead of you because if you don't, you're screwed. Obviously, like I said before, I'm at phase 3, but phase 3B probably will happen for me. Like I said, I am a student athlete. I'm a hockey player. There is a chance that I could be playing pro if the opportunity presents itself. So 3B, if I could potentially take that gap year, play pro over in Europe, hopefully have a clinical job as well, maybe learn more about the healthcare system around the world, that'd be awesome. But these are a lot of the decisions that I have to make, just like you will if you become pre-med. You have to decide what's best for you. Now, this medical timeline is the traditional timeline or traditional-esque timeline, but everybody's running their own race. So it doesn't matter what you do, it matters if it works for you. Knowing what's ahead and when the steps are, or what the steps are, will help make your when make way more sense. And you're gonna grow, you're gonna mature, and you might figure out during phase 3 that you don't wanna do this anymore. You don't wanna take the MCAT, you don't wanna apply to the schools, you don't wanna go to medical school. Then you pivot and you do something else with your degree. There's a lot within the medical field. Being the doctor isn't the end all of everything, but I think it will be an incredibly rewarding experience. If I can get there, if we can get there, whoever I may be. But that's my plan. This is the timeline, and I hope whoever goes on this path does it for the right reasons to help people and to do everything the right way. This was my first video. Hopefully it turns out all right. I think this was a good place to start, just to say welcome to the channel. This is the path that I'm on right now, and I hope you guys join with me, because I'm gonna go through pretty much my life as I go through these phases. And hopefully, like I said before, I'm gonna treat you guys like you're my family, like you're someone that I deeply care about that's gonna go through this, and I want you guys to learn from my mistakes, learn from any advice that I have along the way. So a lot of this first half is gonna be a lot of pre-med stuff. If that's where you are, if you're in phase 1 or early phase 2, click the video that's going to be popping up, because I'm going to be talking all about pre-med, a lot of the stuff that I learned, and I think it'll be really important for you guys to see that, because I did learn a lot, and I think it's really good stuff to know and really good stuff to have. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for watching. If any of you guys watch, thank you guys for watching. I hope you come back. And like I said, my name is Jackson McCarthy, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.